On the 2nd of September 2022, Russia cut off the gas supplies to Europe, pushing the entire continent into turmoil within a matter of weeks. Businesses shut down, gas prices soared to make the most of what was left, and with the winter approaching, everyone was worried about how they were going to survive. But all of this mayhem was exactly what Saudi Arabia's crown prince Mohammed bin Salman wanted. Only a month into being the prime minister of the kingdom, this and the global oil crisis at large just meant that his pockets were about to get a lot heavier, and he was about to get a lot more powerful. In this video, we're going to expose the truth about the Saudi prince, the most powerful man in history who's been using the world leaders as puppets and pulling strings to make sure that he makes his 2030 vision for Saudi Arabia a reality. So let's jump right into it. Before we get into the Saudi prince's power worldwide, we have to start at the home base. Saudi Arabia is the only country in the world where an absolute monarchy still exists. This means that all governmental powers are held by one leader, the king, who can make laws and decisions without any kind of oversight from a parliament or any other governing body. So, in simpler words, since Mohammed bin Salman was appointed prime minister, he has been the most powerful person in Saudi Arabia and has had complete control over the entire country. If the prince wants to build something, he just goes on and does it. If he wants to change policies, guess who he needs to ask first? No one. The man is in complete control, and that brings with itself a slew of advantages too. When you're the absolute leader, you can get anything done without having to worry about public backlash or protests, which is great when it comes to passing controversial laws and implementing new ideas. This also allows him access to immense economic power. As the leader of the world's largest oil producer, he controls the prices of petroleum products in large part in the market. He also has access to the world's largest sovereign wealth fund, which is estimated at more than $2 trillion. In addition to this, he can also control the media in his kingdom and make sure no negative news about him or his government gets out. This kind of complete power over a nation gives him immense leverage, both politically and economically. The Saudi prince's power is not limited to his own kingdom, however. He also has a lot of influence abroad as well, particularly in the Middle East. In recent years, he's been able to forge close relations with different countries in the region and develop closer ties with them. One of the genius ways he does that is by controlling most of the mosques and religious organizations in Saudi Arabia and other Muslim countries. He's funded mosques like the Faisal Mosque in Pakistan and the Grand Mosque in Riyadh. Now that might seem all nice and noble, helping Muslims around the world pray in peace, but there's a covert purpose behind it all. When it's the prince's money behind the mosques, it gives him an in. With it, he can influence public opinion with carefully crafted messages from these institutions. So, whenever there's a direction he wants the people to take, he can just get the sermons altered a certain way and get it echoed in the mosques. It's a way to target the public from the bottom up, and, well, it works. But Prince Mohammed bin Salman wouldn't be the most powerful man in the world if he just controlled the Middle East, would he? It's about everything he does in general that gets into that level. In March 1938, Saudi Arabia struck oil in the Dammam oil field, and ever since, the country has been one of the biggest names in the global oil industry. Beyond controlling tech companies and bans, there's also a lot of power that comes with having control over oil. The Saudi royal family controls about 10% of the world's total oil reserves, which means they can have a say in how much oil is being produced and sold around the world. This could mean manipulating prices to their favor, or simply controlling supply and demand. But take a look at the way Putin absolutely destroyed Europe just by cutting off gas supplies earlier in 2022. With no energy to get them through the winter, some countries were forced to do whatever Putin wanted, whether it was politically or economically. It means that the countries affected are now in dire circumstances and will pay top dollar just so they can finally have stable access to energy. This puts the Saudi prince in a very lucrative position. Not only does he control the world's largest oil reserves, but also the prices, too. This means he can play countries off against each other just by controlling supply and demand. It's an absolute power move that not many people can compete with. The power comes from being able to influence the global economy with its resources. They might not be able to dictate exactly what happens in other countries, But if you control one of the most important resources in the world, then you're sure to have a lot of sway over it. And this is all without mentioning that Prince Mohammed bin Salman has his own investments in the oil industry as well. He's got millions invested in energy companies around the world. And with his influence over Saudi Arabia's oil production, he can make sure those investments remain profitable for years to come. So while his main motivation is that with oil, the Saudi government overall is the world leader, he doesn't do anything if it won't personally benefit him too. With that, he grows his personal income too. And that personal income comes in handy when he wants special favors from people that might need an extra little push. In 2020, it was revealed that the Public Investment Fund, which is the investment company the Saudi prince uses to invest in different countries worldwide, had invested $495.8 million in Disney. That meant that almost 6% of the entire company is owned by Prince Mohammed bin Salman. With how much money the Saudi royal family has, it would be naive to think that the Saudi prince doesn't use his money and influence to control other parts of the world too. He's done it a lot, and he continues to do it. Let's start off with the simple stuff, like the content you consume online. Whether it be on social media or YouTube, chances are there's been Saudi money behind it. We've already talked about Disney, but that's not the only corporation that has to do things the Saudi way. Companies like Amazon, Google, Visa, Microsoft, Nintendo, Uber, PayPal, and Zoom, they all rely on funding from the prince to keep going. So even if you just dissect this information alone, you'll see how far the influence really goes. It means that the things you Google, the things you buy online on Amazon, and the money you use to pay for it all have something to do with public investments. When Prince Mohammed bin Salman took over from King Abdullah in 2015, he had a plan to modernize the Saudi armed forces and make them one of the most powerful forces in the region. This made sense, too, because he started off as a defense minister. He invested heavily in building up their military capabilities, buying weapons and technology from countries around the world, such as Russia, the United States, France, and China. He oversaw the creation of new training facilities and enlisted the help of experts in order to bring their tactics up to par with other armies. The result is that today, Saudi Arabia has one of the most modern armed forces in the Middle East, capable of carrying out operations around the world if necessary. With all this power behind them, it's pretty easy to see why people want to stay on the Saudi royal family's good side. If they don't, not only can they use the investments in the private and public sectors to absolutely demolish the world economy, but they can also cut off the world's supply to oil. And if the worst circumstances present themselves, go to war with anyone that might disagree with them. Considering everyone involved knows exactly how powerful this man really is, no one even dares to mess with him. Companies want to stay profitable. World leaders want him to keep investing in their economies. And the military leaders of the world want nothing more than to keep Saudi troops out of their territories. With all of that said, there's no doubt that Prince Mohammed bin Salman is one of the most powerful men in the world today. And considering he's still in his mid-30s, there's no stopping him from being untouchable forever. And on that note, we'll wrap up today's video.